The last thing you want to think about in the resume is back up to the top. It's the demographic section of your resume. The demographic section of your resume tells the employer what this product, the name of this product is. You know, if you look at advertising out there, I'm going to bring my Coke bottle in. If you think about advertising out there, the biggest thing in the advertising is the name of the product. And so in your resume, the name of your product needs to stand out. It needs to be bigger than everything else in the resume. And I'm not talking about 72-point font across the top. I'm talking about making that name big enough so it stands out in the resume. Something that makes that employer take notice of it. Remember, you have 10 seconds. That's the adage, 10 seconds. The two things we want that employer to remember within that 10 seconds is the name of the product and why they should hire that person, the profile, the thesis to the resume. In that 10 seconds, that's the two things we want them to read, want them to remember. So we're going to make that name a little bigger, make it stand out a little bit more. If you have one font size all the way through the whole document, it kind of makes your resume suffer from highway hypnosis, or a kind of highway hypnosis. People get bored if there's no variety in how you're saying it. So we want to do things like text size increases, bold facing, italicizing, underlying, indenting, bullets, all those things to help create a visual appeal to your resume. And that's why we want to do that. So you don't want to have the same font all the way down. We want to make that name bigger, make it stand out. Under that is going to be the rest of the demographic section. Address, telephone number, email address, that kind of stuff. We're going to get back to the specifics of that in a second, but we want to make that piece of information is between the two things we want them to remember. Remember, we want them to remember the name, we want to remember the reason why they should hire you. This information is in the middle between those two things. And so what I want you to do to kind of compensate for that is to make that a font size or two smaller. Make it a little smaller. Don't make it so small it's unreadable, but make it a little bit smaller, because that helps to add a little extra emphasis to your name, because it serves as kind of a little underline kind of to your name. It helps give that little additional emphasis to your name. It also allows the employer to kind of skip over this section. It's in fine print, and there's a reason why lawyers put contracts in small print, right? It gives you permission to not read it. Well, you really shouldn't take that permission, but we as typical human animals tend to skip over small print. And for the resume, that's what we want them to do. Skip over this for now. They can go back to this later. So we're going to make that information a little bit smaller. And in this demographic information, you don't want to go crazy. One address, not your school address, your home address, your summer address, your temporary, just one address. Sometimes we have employers, once again, I think this is human nature, we have employers that if they are given too much information, they'll do nothing rather than do something or do everything. So if you give them more than one address, sometimes they won't do anything. And we don't want them to do that. So give them one good quality address. Give them one or no more than 2 telephone numbers on your resume. Once again, too many phone numbers, they won't do anything. Give them a home number. If you want to provide your cell number, that's fine. Just be sure that you don't mind receiving calls about your career search on your cell phone. If you do, then don't include your cell phone number. Okay? If you have your phone number on your resume, be sure that you have a good quality answering machine, and that has a good professional sounding message attached to that answering machine. If an employer calls you and they get 5 minutes of music before they even are able to leave a message, I've seen employers just hang up and move on to somebody else. They don't have time or energy for that. What they want is a good quality professional sounding answering machine. If you don't have an answering machine and you're relying on a roommate or a friend or a spouse or somebody to take messages for you, be sure that you're friends with them. Because I have seen that on a time or two also, that somebody's roommate not like somebody and not take the message. So you want to be sure that you have good, reliable message-taking systems in there, whether it's voicemail, an answering machine, or something like that. But be sure and go back and listen to your own messages. Make sure that they sound professional, your outgoing message. Make sure it sounds professional. The same thing is also true of your email address. Email addresses are one of those things just a few years ago that not that many people had, but now they're kind of ubiquitous. Almost everybody has one. But there are some people in the happiness of the moment that pick email addresses which have kind of unusual secondary characteristics. If your email address is UAB hot chick, then probably you might want to think about changing it, because you're not really presenting the appropriate professional image you want to present in your resume. So think about how your information is being presented to an employer, and present information in a way that makes you stand out, make you look to be the professional that you want to be in this situation. So that means that you might have to go and create a secondary email account, and that's okay too. But if you do create a secondary email account, either route it to your primary fun email box, or if you have a standalone account, then check it. We've had occasions that people have lost jobs because they didn't check their email. Be sure that's something you check pretty regularly, because more and more employers are utilizing email as a resource tool to really kind of do their job search. And they will go back and they will send emails and that kind of stuff, because they can do it at any time of the day or night, and you want to be available, want to take advantage of that technology. So if you have it, check it. Be sure that you utilize it. And any communication tool that you put on your resume, be sure that's something you don't mind employers contacting you via that tool, because they will if they can.